Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Shamrock Sports Talk Show, Season 1, Episode number 2. We are about the pride, tradition, sweat, tears, victory, and the determination of Boston sports. We are here to talk about the Boston Celtics. I'm Igor Mitic, and I am from Serbia, Europe, and this is my partner, co-host, Andy Vernon. He is from Concord, New Hampshire, USA. Give us a ring at our number 512-543-4662. Ring again. Our number you can see at banner is 512 543 4662. Or if you didn't remember the number, I will put it on the screen. And Andy, tonight we don't have the pleasant task. In our last show, we were talking about the 3-1 start of our beloved Boston Celtics, but the Celtics managed to lose two in a row, and they lost first in Chicago against Chicago Bulls. 103-120 for Chicago Bulls, and then in TD Garden, the Cleveland Cavaliers made upset. Cleveland Cavaliers defeated us after overtime, 134-123, if I'm correct. So we are 2-3 right now. We have the comment from Gerald Wisniewski. Hello, guys. Hello, Gerald. How are you doing? I hope that you like our graphic studio and the show in general. Thanks for commenting us. One note, Andy, before we proceed. That Boston Celtics played the last game that they lost against Cavaliers without injured Robert Williams, injured Danilo Gallinari. Robert Williams should be back for the second part of the season. Galinari not so much. Grant Williams suspended. But Cavaliers played without the best player and all-star player Darius Garland, and also Ricky Rubio, who started the last season well, then injured himself. He is also important part of the team. So after good start of the season, now the questions about the Celtics. What do you say about the last two losses?
I mean, like, honestly, I'm not that concerned about those two losses. First of all,
Yep.
Chicago's a good team. I think a lot of people have just underrated Chicago a lot, but that's, I mean, if you look at their roster, they have a very good roster. They're very well balanced. And Chicago was one of the teams I thought was going to give Boston trouble this year. So that's not really a big surprise to me. Cleveland was a little bit more disappointing, but I mean, like, it was a very close game. And I think not having Grant Williams probably hurt them. But really, when you look at the Cleveland game, that was a game that they were really winning. Like, that final 132-123 is a misleading score. It literally came down to like the last 20 seconds of the game of regulation. When Jared Allen got fouled and then hit a free throw, and that's those types of losses just happen. So I'm not really that concerned about it. I don't think Darius Garland is. I don't think he's really that great on the Cavs now. I think I would kind of question where he's going to fit alongside Mitchell and LaVert. But I think the big issue for Boston. Two big issues is one, the defense does not look well coordinated this year. And the second problem is just size, but we already knew that going into the season. And the thing is we can't bring in another center really because our roster already has what 4 centers on it.
Mm. That's the catch. We are going to talk about it. Maybe to recap, to recap the games, then to talk about the problems right now and the solutions. Again, we do not overreact. I was talking in the previous show. I am not overreacting on 3-0. Everybody were saying after 3-0, like, oh, the Celtics are obvious. Obvious title contenders. They are going to waltz to win the title, and Jason Tatum is going to waltz to MVP, awards. Well, I mean, I was not buying that, and I'm not buying that the people are saying that suddenly the Celtics are, bad team or something. I think that we will be good eventually when we're healthy, but how good remains to be seen. And also, I mean, you mentioned defense. So, Ime Udoka, the guy that we miss. We thought that we would not miss Ime Udoka, but as you can see on our screens, so far this season, the Celtics defense has been one of the worst in the league. After 5 games, the Celtics ranked 26th in defensive rating, 117.9, and the Celtics allowed the 9th most points per game. This is 118.6 points per game. If this trend continues, it would not be good, right? I think that I have more informations about the defense, but this is from Twitter from Keith Smith. Celtics defense stinks right now. I mean, Ime Udoka rolling his eyes, probably watching the game, just like in our picture. So, Andy, I mean, why our defense without elaboration is bad in the first 5 games. I was talking about that, by the way. I'm not going to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I told you so. My emphasis as basketball philosophy is just like Ime Udoka's defense. Defense, and defense. And I was not happy after 3 games about the defense. And you can only imagine after 5 games and after these 2 catastrophical defensive games, last 2, I'm shaking my head. So what do you say?
Well, I mean, like I think here's the thing: like defense is not as important in the NBA. If we
Okay.
talk about the NFL or so, like I'm a huge proponent of good defense in the NFL. The NBA is a different story because the game and the way it is officiated encourages more offensive play and makes it a more offense centric league. With that
Right.
being said, though, if you aren't going to play, you can't be a bottom 50% defense. I mean, that's a big part of the
Yeah,
problem.
yeah. A point is, sorry for interrupting you. The evidence is saying that the teams in the Eastern Conference Finals is the last 20 plus years, 1 or 2 exceptions in one category, not 2 categories, one categories. So Eastern Conference finalists and Western Conference finalists teams, they both had top 5 offense or defense and top 10 another category. Okay, so you either have
Right.
top 5 offense and top 10 defense or the otherwise.
So my point is like you can't be a bottom tier defense. I don't think anybody's won a finals with being in the bottom like 10 teams of defense in
Nope.
recent memory. Second of
Nope.
all, if you're not going to be an elite defense, then you have to be an elite offense.
Absolutely.
And herein lies the issue for Boston because right now we're kind of back at the square that we've been at for the last few years, where
Okay. I mean, I'm hearing myself, but I'm not hearing Andy. He is frozen.
Oh,
I
am I
hope that.
frozen? Is this better?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right
Yeah,
now
it's a
you're
problem.
good.
I'm sorry, it's a problem with
Okay,
my
okay.
tablet. But what I was
Mm-hmm.
saying
Oh,
was basically you can't if we're not going to be an elite defensive team, we need to be an elite offensive team. And
absolutely.
right now, the problem for Boston is the same problem we've had for the last few years, where it's Jalen and Jason, and then we're all saying Hail Marys and sacrificing chickens and hoping that somebody else has a hot shooting night. And we don't know who that is because we don't have a consistent third option. And if we're not going to be that elite top five defense, then we need to have that consistent third option. And I'm not going to be really concerned about it because I think Malcolm Brogdon can be that consistent third option. The problem is right now he's coming back from not having played basketball for basically a year. And he's obviously still figuring things out and getting used to playing with the team. So I think some of that's going to work itself out. But the issue for Boston is we really need a consistent third option, and we need that to not be
I
Marcus
agree.
Smart. Because I think Marcus Smart against Cleveland was what,
That's
20% from
that.
the field?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I mean, in this team currently constructed, Marcus Smart is option number three. Both in the defense, he is probably option number one, but on the offense, he's option number three. I don't like it. I don't think you can win the title this way, but hey, I mean, miracles happens.
Well,
So
the problem with
the
Smart,
last season is. Mhm.
the
Say.
problem with Smart is that he is the definition of a streaky shooter. So it's not that you don't want him to shoot because if he's on, then he's on, and you want him to shoot because like he'll set another 3-point record. The problem is that the other 20 games where he's not on, he's going to shoot
Mhm.
20 to 30% from the field because he's just not, he's not a hot streak. And that's the problem with Marcus Smart. And Smart doesn't, I think at this point we could just give up on him ever getting a feel for when he's hot and when he's not. And the thing is, unless the coach really reins him in and controls that tendency, Smart is going to shoot like he's Steph Curry on a shooting streak every single night. And 1 out of 20 nights, it's going to work out really well for us. And the other 19 nights, we're going to watch him shoot 15 shots and make three of them.
Yeah, and the smart fan club will say after those kind of games. For example, remember Cleveland Cavaliers with Isaiah Thomas lost in the Eastern Conference Finals. One win in Cleveland. Smart shooted like 8 of 10, like Ray Allen,
Yeah.
the threes, and the Smart crowd was like, "We told you so. We told you so that he is the good shooter." Well, I mean, in general, he's tricky shooter, like you said, but in general, he's average one. I mean, I'm happy with his shooting progress, but he's not option number three. That's what we are trying to say on the offense. Anyway, I mean, Gerald asked, how will Boston do without their head coach? Well, I mean, Joe Missoula is still learning, right, Andy? And I mean, after the 3 games, Joe Missoula, he just uh, showed promises and compliments. For example, Vogue and national medias, they said that maybe he is the long-term solution. Maybe they implied that Ime Udoka will not return as Boston head coach and Joe Missoula will take over. This is possible. But I guess it depends how the season will end. I think that the destiny of Joe Missoula will depend on the season ending. If he brings the Celtics into the finals or wins the finals, my guess is that he's going to stay. If he fails, I guess that he's going to uh, No, I mean, I guess that he's not going to be the head coach anymore or interim head coach anymore. What do you say, Andy?
Yeah, so I think the thing with Joe Mazzulla, it's really too early to tell. And, I'll kind of pull a little bit. Obviously, I've never coached at a professional level, but I did coach high school football. And it's easy to win your first few games in your first season because you're coming to especially if you're coming in as a new, I was an offensive coordinator. If you're higher up in the coaching hierarchy, you come in with your new plan, your new lineups, your new schemes. Nobody's seen it before. So, in a lot of ways, assuming you've coached it properly, you have an advantage because you kind of have the initiative. The other team is reacting to you because they haven't seen what you're doing, and
Mm-hmm.
that makes things
Mm-hmm.
easier. As you go through the season more, and there's more game footage out there, more game film to review, people figure out what you're doing. They figure out how to stop it, or they figure out where you're weak. And I think that's what we saw with Chicago. That's what we saw with Cleveland. And I think Joe Mazzulla is going to see a lot more of this with other teams playing two bigs or giving big minutes to two different big men to attack us inside the paint. And it's on him as a coach to recognize that other teams have seen this weakness and are trying to exploit it and to come back and figure out a way to defend that weakness. And I think that's, we're kind of getting into that area now where we see if he can coach, because that's what separates a good coach from a bad coach is the ability to adjust to those changes and the ability to come up with new schemes on the fly to counter what your opponent's doing to counter you. It's a chess game, basically. Anybody could have a strong opener in chess because you could just study the right opening moves. What really is going to matter from there is how you react to what your opponent does in response to you. And so I think right now, I don't think morale wise, I don't think not having Ime Udoka is going to hurt Boston. But I think what will hurt is if Joe Mazzulla can't figure these things out and Boston keeps getting pummeled on the interior and in the paint and keeps losing games. They really should win because as good as Donovan Mitchell and Caris LeVert are, I don't think they're a better team than Boston.
No,
I
no,
think we
no,
should have won
no,
that
no.
game.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But
In
if
TD
Joe
Garden,
Mazzulla
especially.
can't figure that out, he's going to start having problems because it's easy to be a coach when you're winning. It is very hard to be a coach when you're losing.
I'm tempted to when we are talking about Joe Mazzulla, maybe it is best to make some criticism. For example, Brian Robb from masslive.com, he wrote this. While some questionable decisions in the second half deserved the look against Cavaliers. For example, Malcolm Brogdon over Derek White late in regulations. Mazzulla leaned into the team's offensive look in the closing minutes of regulation. He was subbing out White as with the 4 points lead and 3 minutes left in hopes of jumps starting Boston's offense. The decision didn't work out well in the crucial possession. Caris LaVert crushed the three, uncontested to grab a crucial offensive rebound in the closing minutes. The play drew the R of Al Horford immediately as LaVert hit the go-ahead three, then setting the stage for the Cavaliers to force overtime. Mazzulla is going to need to make tough lineup decisions on nightly basis, but this was the night where White defense was probably more than Brogdon's offense. Then rolling out with called Marcus Smart. So Mazzulla was vocal trust in Smart on nightly basis, like Friday situations. Smart continues his 3-point shooting slump to begin year, going 3 of 15 from the field and 2-9 from the 3 points range, probably the worst since his rookie year. So 22%, like Andy said. The Celtics have a pair of far more reliable shooters this year in White and Brogdon. If we have the depth somewhere. We have the depth at the point guard position this year. And remember that Pritchard is glued to the bench thus far. So if the offense is struggling, giving that duo a chance together should be considered when Smart is being wide open on the countless occasions and he fails to make opponents pay. So the teams are building their defense based to the Smart when he's not shooting well. The team obviously has confidence that Smart will break out the funk, and he will. But they shouldn't let the Smart cause them lost games. I have one more thing, but I will let you those couple of things to comment. Marcus Smart in the regulations and Malcolm Brogdon over Derek White. Do you think it was a mistake or maybe not?
So Brogdon, I don't think is a mistake. Boston wants to give him minutes because we want him to get back, to that level that he was at in Indiana. We want him to get minutes. I'll lose some games now if we could get the borderline all-star version of Malcolm Brogdon from Indy. Like, perfectly fine with losing some games now for that. Marcus Smart, on the other hand, and I think, we've worked together long enough, Igor. You know that I am a big Marcus Smart fan. I love Smart. I love his passion. I think off the court, he's a great guy. He's done a lot.
We are talking about Marcus Smart conundrum since he was drafted, 2015.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like Smart's a great guy. Like off the court, like he has done so much work with the area hospitals, children's hospitals in Boston area. Phenomenal guy. But all of that doesn't matter in this context because he has never been a reliable shooter. Now, you have somebody like Steph Curry, right? If Steph Curry starts out the year with a shooting slump, you're going to let him jack up as many threes as he wants to shoot because you know that sooner or later he's going to snap out of it. He's going to go back to the 44% from beyond the arc Steph Curry that nobody can guard. So you're fine with that. Marcus Smart, what's he going to break out of his shooting slump for? To get back up to 34% from beyond the arc? I mean, to me, that's just not worth it. I'd rather see us try to get somebody else going. I'd rather see Pritchard get a little bit of time. And the thing that a lot of fans miss is Smart is a great defender, obviously, Defensive Player of the Year. He struggles with smaller, quicker guards. Well, not smaller. Mitchell isn't smaller, but he's quicker. He struggles with those quicker guards. And so I would have probably might have kept Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon on the floor instead of Smart.
Absolutely agree. And do you know what else is bad on last night's NOS? Losing a game like this, where Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Al Horford, they all played 40 plus minutes. Smart is 30 plus minutes. We are drying the starters out, and it's only 5 games. And we are not giving the chance to the bench. Okay, it is nice to have Sam Housier play. I love the kid, and I'm supporting that by all costs, but we're going to go to the front court. This is a separated subject. But Joe Mazzulla, you don't have any reasons to dry out the starters at the beginning because they are going to hurt themselves. And this is going to be really, really bad. We don't need injuries. And your bench is going to stay cold because the people are not playing, man. Right?
Yeah. And that was actually, if you remember, all the way back to when we were going through the head coach search and everybody wanted Jason Kidd. And I said, I don't want Jason Kidd because he has a habit of running his starters into the ground. Yes. And that's the thing. Like, we're early in the season. We still have a young bench. Like, a lot of our bench guys are pretty young. Like, give these guys minutes. Let them play. Like, and Cleveland, I get why we didn't, because that was a very close game. So I understand why you didn't in that game. But at some point, like, maybe we have to kind of sit back and, work some of these younger guys into the rotations more. I'm not saying big minutes, but like 10 minutes. 8 minutes, a little bit of time to get their feet wet, dribble the ball, feel the ball a little bit, get a couple shots. I mean, like, Pritchard's a good shooter. I doubt that Peyton Pritchard taking 3 or 4 shots a game is going to hurt us. And defensively, he has his issues, but and this is why that 26th in the NBA in defense is so mind-boggling to me, because this team, without any defensive scheme, should be a good defensive team. Like, if the coach didn't draw up a single defensive scheme, they should still be good on defense.
Right. And I have another issue about Mr. Joe Mazzulla. And again, he's rookie head coach. We're not giving him, hot rabbit treatment. We're just saying what is obvious. No timeouts at the end of the regulations. I mean, Mr. Mazzulla, you have timeouts to use them. This was the big one that should be under the microscope, and the team ultimately headed into overtime. The Celtics had a chance to win the game in regulations. With the ball, we have the ball and 20 seconds on the clock, and we have the star, and they didn't have the star of the team. Garland, I still think that Garland is number one in this team, but never mind. So Mazzulla declined to call the timeout. I mean, come on. I cannot remember the game except some small leagues in these situations where I didn't see the coach to call the timeouts, except when you don't have the timeouts. But we did have the timeouts. And the fact that Luke Cornett has just been inserted into the game for rebounding purposes, giving the Cavs an easy player to help off offensively. And ultimately, Jason Tatum took contested look jumper while facing a help defender, and that he airballed before the game into the overtime. Listen what the coach said. I thought about it, but I thought I would give a chance to get the defense set and let them put a sub in they want and let them to talk about it. Mazzulla understandably defended Tatum look in that spot, something that Tatum himself echoes in the post-game presser. However, the rationale from Mazzulla, where he doesn't hold much weight since the Cavs already has subbed in their best defender for Tatum, and that is Wade at the free throw. So the Cavs defense had plenty of time to get, as well as Boston walk up the ball, and the Celtics simply didn't have their best space lineup on the floor around Jason Tatum. We have Cornett, and they sag off Cornett, and for the team struggled to score in the second half. For most of the second half, a play draw up in the huddle with idea how to play the last play in the game would be must do. Instead, Mazzulla opted a weak, self-improved action, improved by Tatum, and setting the stage for overtime collapse. Ultimately, the Celtics have some big picture, like we said, the defense, but they are understandable given the personnel options at the point. But for a team that struggled plenty at the crunch time, this was tough start for the interim coach department. Mazzulla was dealing with a tough hand. Cavs matchup without Grant Williams available, and of course, but I think that this was the mistake. What do you think about not calling timeout?
Yeah, so in almost every team sport, obviously I'm probably a little bit better with football than basketball, but like in football, you have plays as a coach at any level of football from high school on up. I think even in Pee Wee football, you have certain plays, 3 or 4 of them, that just go to high percentage plays where they're very simple goals that get the ball to your best player in their best spot, right? Like, for example, you'll give it'll be a quick toss to your wide receiver on a slant route, something that's very, very easy to execute. We have 3 players on the Celtics that are reliable scorers in crunch time. That's Al Horford, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. Those are what your timeouts are for. When you have 20 seconds left on the clock, the other team has just tied the game. That's why you call the timeout, or ideally you probably dribble the ball a little bit, run some clock, call the timeout, and that's when you run one of your design plays to get Jaylen or Jason on a cutting route going in towards the basket with a screen set by Horford or Connect, or preferably a double screen, and then Jaylen or Jason cutting in around those screens with a quick inbounds as they're cutting in towards the basket. Both of those guys should be able to score at a really high percentage on that. Or you give it to Horford down in the post. I probably wouldn't go with Horford because of Jared Allen, and knowing that they had subbed in Wade, my go-to would have been a double screen, misdirection movement from Tatum, and a cut from Jaylen Brown with a quick inbound to a cutting Brown. That's something that should work. And as a coach, I'm going to assume that you have those plays drawn up, because every team does. I mean, we see it with the Warriors all the time. They do that double screen misdirection from Clay. Steph cuts in, and they give them a quick inbounds for an easy layup. They do that all the time. That's their go-to. That's what I'm talking about. It's a super high percentage play. And I don't know, if you're not going to use your timeout for that in that situation, what are you going to use it for? And I understand, Joe Mazzulla, I think he's actually done a really good job considering the hand that he's been dealt. He's had a very difficult situation coming into his first head coaching job. I think he's done very well, all things considered. But, I don't know what happened there. I know that to get to where he's at as a coach, he has to know better than that. And so I'm hoping that was just kind of a one-off mistake. It's a wake-up call for him, and we never have to discuss something like this again.
Understand. So on the screen, you can see some old and some new problems. The things went sidelines at the opening of the second half. So many turnovers. The defense is broken right now. Ball stopped moving in the second half, and minutes already creeping too high. We talk about it, feeling bad right now. Obviously, I mean, we cannot feel happy. Right. I want to talk about the front court a little. Listen to this in the preparation. Front court. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So Jason Tatum put in the work to improve his diet. So no fried chickens, as Shaq would say for Jason Tatum, and he improved body, and his team added bench depth to help the Boston Celtics star. So what is the biggest obstacle to no barbecued chicken? Pardon, not fried chicken, but whatever. So what is the biggest obstacle to the goal to the St. Louis native? According to Breacher Reports, Dan Favale, the question mark is front court, and so far in the team's 2022-23 campaign, Favale appears to be spot on in the assignment. Quote, what once seems to be like one of the NBA's most formative off seasons from the Boston Celtics has quickly developed into overwhelming string of unknowns. Boston finds itself depending on a platoon age 36 years old Al Horford, Grant Williams, Blake Griffin, Luke Cornett, and Noah Vonleh in the interim. Throw Tatum at center lineups there too. And while there have been promising results, we have seen how thin Boston front court without Grant Williams especially is. While that may work until Time Lord returns, there is a lot of space for losses and wear on Horford in the interim. The Celtics front line is delicate, and as a result, so are the team's chances of emerging from the Eastern Conference. He noticed, and Boston does have tools to add depth at the roster if needed, and they will probably need it, as he concluded. Of course, I mean, the story will be completely different if we have the Time Lord, if we have Grant Williams, if we have Danilo Galinari. We could rest Horford, and I think the story will be different, or would be different and will be different. But maybe even with those kind of people, we will have the problems. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think part of the problem in our front court is we don't really have a physical presence. Like Cornette's a 7-footer, but he's not physical. Horford's probably our most physical big man. But we
Yes.
really need somebody who can kind of fill that physical role in the paint. Um, I love Time Lord. Like, when he's healthy, he's amazing. The problem is
Yes.
he basically has very short spurts of being healthy in between long periods of being injured. And that's not something, that's like the Lakers, basically, with all the hopes that they pin on AD, who is like, AD has got to be like the tallest porcelain doll I've ever seen in my life, because it seems like every time AD jumps, falls, or does basically anything, I'm expecting him to get injured. And that's kind of how I feel about Time Lord. Is like, he's an amazing player when he's healthy, but every time he falls or jumps and lands a little bit awkwardly, like, I'm saying, like, oh crap, there goes his season. I think Boston, we don't need to have an elite center, but we need somebody who could give us some quality minutes. Like guys that you used to think about. He's not really that guy anymore, but like JaVale McGee used to be. JaVale McGee was a guy.
Absolutely. In the championship season.
Yeah, he was like 10 to 15 minutes a game. But in 10 to 15 minutes a game, the guy could come in and he could give you like 6 to 8 points and 6 to 7 rebounds or something like that. He would come in and he could just come into the game, grab a rebound, make a dunk. That's what Boston needs from a big man.
Absolutely. Or Dwight Howard. Howard.
I don't know why we didn't pursue Dwight Howard. I don't really see it as we had anything to lose. And Dwight Howard's not going to be a star or a game changer, but he's a guy who could give you 10 to 15 quality minutes of being a big, bruising, physical guy in the paint.
Right.
He's got attitude. I mean, nobody's going to say Dwight Howard doesn't have attitude.
But point is that we will have to address the issues. Let us finish with these horrible Cavaliers games. So look at this. Andy, these two people, they scored 82 points in the game that is regular season game. But never mind, 82 points, man. I mean, I will find it. This is Caris LeVert. This is not LeBron James. Even LeBron, I cannot remember if LeBron James and Kyrie Irving in that famous game number 6 in Boston, if they scored 80, but 41, Caris LeVert and Donovan Mitchell, 82 points. This is the most ever by Cavaliers backcourt in regular season game, man. And 41 points, 6 threes, Caris LeVert, and Donovan Mitchell, 41, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. From Keith Smith, the Cavaliers going to be pretty scary with Darius Garland back. They can play a lot of different ways and give the teams bunch of different looks, lineup-wise. Fun group in Cleveland. What I want to talk right now, we ended with Cleveland. Game mercifully and thankfully. The problems persisted in the Chicago game. Let me just post the poster from that very game. I mean, the Chicago loss, which is 102 and 120. So, I mean, uh, uh, point is that the Billy Donovan stumbled upon the simple code that night in Chicago. He found the weakness and attacked the weakness relentlessly for 2.5 periods in Chicago. It was simple high slot pick and roll with either Nikola Vucevic and Andre Drummond operating as a roll man. And Boston covered pick and roll worse than high school team in that game. Never mind personnel. So anything that involved getting the Bulls big in the paint seems to do the trick. Let's take a look at some plays. Quick. I mean, punch action. For example, in one possession, the Celtics playing without the center of the floor, and then they took a mismatch with Vucevic in the post, and with such a size, difference, versatility, the Celtics have no choice but to send the three of the ball. And that is leaving the weak side shooter open. And guess what? Vucevic passing the ball and the three from the corner. The three from the corner. High pick and rolls. Most of Chicago pick and roll success came from running them in the slot area, the gap between the top of the perimeter and the wing. You have the field there, the large field. Now, I'm not saying any of the Bulls big feasted in these actions, but their presence certainly created confusion in the Boston defensive unit. The possession didn't end the bucket for the Bulls because Al Horford did the good job. And rebounding. Missoula said, and Al Horford said that we will have to do the better job about rebounding. But listen, it is hard to do the good rebounding when you don't have the personnel. And except Blake Griffin, we can maybe use Blake Griffin for offensive rebounds, but we don't have size, man. We don't have size. And I mean, we tried Joe Missoula double big lineup with Luke Cornett and Al Horford, which I personally disliked, but we don't have personnel right at the moment right now. We don't have size, and the pick and roll coverage is awful. Some comments about it? We're talking about the Bulls loss.
Yeah, I mean, like, just in general, I will be honest and say I am not a big Luke Cornett fan. I feel like he has a lot of drawbacks of being a 7-footer. He's slow on his feet, doesn't switch well, has to drop, and he doesn't come with the upsides of being a 7-footer. Like, he's not a big physical guy. He's not a bruiser. He gets pushed around a lot. Some guys saying, oh, okay, well, I mean, like, yeah, I guess he can sort of space the floor, but like how well, I don't know what his 3-point percentage is. It hasn't been big enough to make an impact. So I'm not a big Luke Cornett fan. I'd rather see us try to give more run to like Noah Vonleh, or like at least Vonleh. Like, he's not a big guy, but he does have an athleticism to him that lets him play in the paint.
He's trying.
And the other thing with Vonleh, is he has a lot on the, he has a lot at stake right now. And when you are, arguably playing for his NBA future, because if he fades in Boston, he's probably not going to find another home in the NBA. Conversely, if he becomes that energy rebound and putback guy on Boston, he probably will find another home in the NBA. So, I would give him minutes because, that's a powerful motivator right there. Like, when you're playing or working for your job, that's pretty powerful. In terms of the Bulls game, I feel like we've, like when Joe Mazzulla said, like, we're not going to focus as much on defense, I thought that meant more like we're going to practice more offense. I didn't think that meant that we were going to throw defense out the window completely.
I was afraid of it.
I was afraid of it. We've regressed to like a year or 2 years ago when the team
Mm,
struggled. Well, no, was it 2 years ago? Yeah, against the
two
Heat
years ago,
when under Brad Stevens against the Heat in the
under
playoffs when
Brad Stevens.
they couldn't defend the pick and roll and they couldn't figure out how
Mm-hmm.
to attack his own defense. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
guess
yeah,
like to
yeah.
me, like the thing is like I understand that your practice time is limited, but just because you're going to focus more on offense doesn't mean that your defense should just like regress to high school.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you see the highlights. So bad rebounding, weird doubles or triples, open corner threes, awful pick and roll coverage, looking lost, and I mean, like I said, bad game except the first period. In first period we won, and we were leading at the halftime actually, I think, and they harassed us in the second period. Uh, I mean, they are playing. So interesting stuff that I forgot to mention. Joe Missoula last night against Cavaliers, he went back to Blake Griffin with 3 fouls at the end of first period against going with Noah Vonleh. That was interesting, especially on the night without Grant Williams suspended. Uh, I don't think it worked out uh, pretty well, and I think that Noah Vonleh should be ahead of Blake Griffin right now, simply because Blake Griffin didn't prove to me that he has enough uh, to be rotational player. Maybe he's not in condition. He can play, but uh, I would rather go with Noah Vonleh. What do you say?
I would have too. I think what Joe Mazzulla was doing was after Chicago and with the Cavs running a lot of two big men on the floor. I think he was trying to space out and pull those big men out of the paint. The problem is Blake. I mean, granted, Blake Griffin hit his only 3-point attempt, but he only
Mhm.
had one of them, and that's not really going to do what you need to have it do. Yeah, it's not going to be a successful strategy. I just I think the problem is that we're like we just don't have a reliable option at the center position outside of Al Horford, and because of that, I mean I like Vonleh. I think he should be ahead of Blake Griffin. I agree with you. I don't know why. I really I'm going to go back to this. I really don't know why we are insisting on putting Luke Cornett as high up. Like, Luke Cornett to me would be below Blake Griffin.
Probably because they are hoping that he can shoot. But again, go with Blake. I mean, I'm not going to say that Blake Griffin is extraordinary better than Cornette, but at this point, if I have to choose between Blake Griffin and Cornette, I would go with Blake Griffin. But ahead of them is Noah Vonleh when we're talking about the center rotation. Or we forgot about that guy, Kabengele, right? I mean,
Yeah, he hasn't
why?
even played, has he?
Why? No, I mean, why don't you give this boy a chance? Because he showed promises in the preseason and
Yeah.
he played the solid summer league. So if you don't want to bring in the solid backup center, I mean, at this point, why don't you give the chance to Kabengele? You know,
Yeah.
giving the minutes to those guys, you're not doing good. And again, I will return to the minutes talk. I mean, we lost the game in which we played three best players like 40 minutes, Horford, Tatum, Brown, and Marcus Smart close to 34 something minutes. That's awful, man. And it's game number 5 of the season. What we're going to do when in the game number 20, what we're going to do in the game number 30. you know
Mhm.
i'm I mean, this way we're going to lose another center. I hope not, But if we play Horford 40 minutes per game, he's 36, or somebody else from the top four players. And what are we going to do then, And the Bleacher Report guy, he has the point. Now, I'm not going to say the best scenario would be, if we dream that we have, instead of Horford, like all-star power forward like Chris Bosh at Miami or somebody else, like Kevin Love in this championship season for Cavaliers. Because if you notice those big threes when they were in the fashion in the NBA, you always had like two guards and the center, or the center and forward and guard, and we have the big two plus Smart. If you consider Smart part of the big three, and I think that Smart has been given all the rights to be part of the big three, to do whatever he wants on the court as the floor general. So if you consider Smart part of the big three, I would say again, you need like better center line. And I'm talking about the centers since 2018, I think. I was not happy with them. And the people are telling me that I'm old-fashioned, that the centers doesn't matter, that, only offense and the guards are winning the championship in the NBA. But I dislike. And look at the Warriors. They have James Wiseman, one of the most promising centers in the NBA, the future All-Star, I think. I mean, and they
If he ever
always
plays
had.
another game.
If he plays another game, yeah. I mean, but you need size, man. Small ball lineup is fine, but not on temporary basis. You start the traditional two big man lineup. Last year we played majority of the time the two big man lineup, right? Majority of the time, Al Horford and Time Lord. And we have Grant Williams, reliable third big man from the bench, right? And we have shadows of Daniel Tice. Shadows of Daniel Tice, to say that way. In the season where we were revelation, 2018, we played the two traditional big men, Al Horford again and Aaron Baines. And I forgot Daniel Tice again, I think, from the bench. So, I mean, you must have the small ball lineups, but you must not put the Tatum at the center or Jaylen Brown at the center. That's horrible, I mean, you put in the small ball lineup to change the tempo, to change the game in the fourth period, just like Warriors. But you do not count on the small ball lineup every time, because Billy Donovan will come again and he will use your weaknesses again, or any other smart coach in the NBA, right?
Oh, yeah, I mean, like, I'm not reading too much into this because, like, the thing to me, and like I said, I like Marcus Smart a lot, but he is not. He's not been an elite defender this year, and our defensive backcourt, which is supposed to be very good, has been very bad. Because you look at guards who have gone off. Terrence Ross went off against us. Zach LaVine went off against us. LaVert,
Caris, LaVert,
Mitchell,
Donovan Mitchell.
At some point, like, Smart needs to step up and stop trying to be a 3-point sniper and do what he's on the court to do and defend. Yeah, I get it. We have different assignments. And, I think the Cavaliers game, I mean, I think that's an outlier from Caris LeVert. I think he just had a really hot night. But, like, at some point with guys like Zach LaVine, Terrence Ross, as Marcus Smart, as the defensive player of the year, you have to rotate yourself onto them to throw them off their rhythm. Especially with LeVert, he needed to get LeVert off his rhythm, because Caris LeVert is a rhythm shooter. Like, we all know that. Like, he needs to take shots and he needs to get into that rhythm. And Marcus Smart, you're the defensive player of the year. You need to put yourself on him and jar him out of that rhythm a few times in the game. Like, and that's the thing to me, like, beyond, the problems in the paint, I don't think that we necessarily needed another big man so much as we just needed to be able to respond to the pick and roll. Like, you can bump, you can jostle, you can seal the roller and accomplish a lot of the same things. In fact, Boston did that pretty well last year, defending the pick and roll from small lineups, where they would seal the big when the big tried to roll. And that was basically, you take up enough of the time that the guard has to take a bad shot on the perimeter. But like this time, like nobody would get in Vucevic or Jared Allen's way, and that's a big part of the problem. If you just get out of the way and let them roll, yeah, like they're going to score every time. You need to get in there and put a body on it. I think that's something that they did well last year, and I don't know why all of a sudden they're not doing it at all this year. I guess that's kind of confusing to me.
Mm, okay, I mean, to conclude the story and the show, we must wait Time Lord to return, okay? Danilo Galinari, I'm not putting hopes that he will return this season, to tell you the truth. And yeah, this is sad. But let's wait Grant Williams, Al Horford, and Robert Williams to see how does it work and how the defense is working then, okay? And we will talk about it. I still think that even when we're healthy, we will have to put our guys that we signed on the roster, like if it is possible, like Luke Cornett, Blake Griffin, even Noah Vonleh, whomever, to throw in some picks, cash, assets, and to trade couple of those guys for just one average backup center that we were talking about. Dwight Howard like, Aaron Baines is from the best days like, and just the bruiser. Javal McGee like. I still think that we will have to trade for it. But we will see. Support for the team, support for Missoula, 6 p.m. Eastern, Washington tomorrow. We have bad news because Malcolm Brogdon is questionable for the game. And we don't want to enter the injury bug spinning wheel again. And we really hope that we will be healthy starting from the new year, because that's what is the most important about. Do you have some thoughts about Wizards game quick before we finish the show?
I mean, not really. No, it's a game that Boston should win. I think the thing to watch is how well we can defend Washington's guards. Because I would be shocked if they don't try to run pick and roll, pick and pop on us, especially with Bradley Beal. So this is a good game to watch to see if Missoula can make those adjustments to go back to defending the pick and roll how we did last year. And also to see if our elite defensive backcourt, because if Brogdon's out, it's going to be Smart and Derek White.
Maybe Pritchard.
They're one of the best defensive backcourts on paper, so they should be able to make life difficult for Bradley Beal. So I'm very interested to see if they could live up to that hype.
Maybe we will see Peyton Pritchard. Okay, Andy. Thanks, Mr. Gerald, for writing. Thanks, our friend Kevin Dixon, for letting us to have show on his network, and the other guys from End the Zone Sports Talk Network. Thank you, Andy. Without you, probably I would not be here. And thanks, guys, from End the Sports, End the Zone Sports Talk Radio Network. For support for two of us. Thank you for listening. Shamrock Sports Talk Show, episode number 2. We are here every Saturday from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern. We are the best 4-leaf lucky show in the area. This show comes to you by the way of the End the Zone Sports Talk Show Network, LLC. And where you can find us: YouTube, Kevin Dixon and the Zone Talk Radio, also Kevin Dixon profile and the Zone Sports Talk Radio. We are doing lives at the Facebook, and we have Shamrock Sports Talk Radio Shamrock Sports Radio profile at the Twitter with the capital letters. Find us there with our logo, and that's it. Talk to you, ladies and gentlemen, the next Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Andy, final words?
Well, let's hope for a win against the Wizards.
Okay, go Celtics. Thanks for listening us and watching us. Oh.